All right, so we're diving into some pretty deep waters today
Yeah.
with a question that I think has been plaguing humankind
hmm
for, well, probably as long as there have been relationships.
hmm
Why do some men cheat? And
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
we've got some research here
You do.
on this very topic.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one.
And I think it's something that a lot of people have had personal experience with or know someone or,
For sure.
see it in movies and stuff. So
It's all over.
what do you think, like right off the bat, like what's the first thing that comes to mind? I mean, is it as simple as like guys are just dogs?
Well, that's a stereotype, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and I think if we really want to get into this, we got to acknowledge right away that this is a complex issue
For sure.
with a lot of different factors at play.
And absolutely.
And it's not fair or accurate to just paint, half the population with such a broad brush.
No, definitely not. We're not trying to point fingers here. We're just trying to like understand it a little better.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with that said, let's look at some of the research here, some of the reasons that have been proposed for why some men might stray.
Yeah, and one of the big ones that comes up again and again is emotional needs,
Oh.
or more specifically, unmet emotional needs.
Oh, so it's not just like purely a physical thing.
Right.
It's deeper than that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well-
It's about feeling like something's missing in the relationship, like on an emotional level.
Okay, so like what kind of needs are we talking about here?
Well, think about it. We all have these fundamental needs as humans.
Right.
To feel loved and appreciated, respected,
Mm-hmm.
understood, to feel connected.
Yeah.
And when those needs aren't being met in a relationship,
Yeah.
some people might start looking for those feelings elsewhere, even if it's not the healthiest way to go about it.
Right.
It's kind of like if you're starving, you're going to go looking for food,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to just sit there and witter away.
Makes sense.
You're going to go find sustenance wherever you can get it.
So it's like emotional hunger almost.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
looking for something to fill that void.
And there are different kinds of emotional hunger, too.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Some guys might be craving affirmation.
Okay.
They need to feel like their partner really values them and sees their worth.
Mm-hmm.
Others might be longing for an intellectual connection,
Okay.
for that spark of, deep conversation
Yeah.
that maybe they're not finding at home.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's not always just about physical attraction or,
Right.
I mean,
It's more about feeling seen and heard,
exactly. Yeah.
understood. Yeah.
Feeling like you matter.
But okay, hold on a second. Why not just talk to your partner about these things?
Right.
Like, if you're feeling this way, if you're not getting these needs met, why not just communicate that?
Yeah, you'd think that would be the obvious solution, right?
Right.
And in a perfect world, it would be.
Yeah.
But the thing is, sometimes people aren't even aware of what they're missing.
Really?
Yeah, they just
Right.
have this vague sense of unease or dissatisfaction, but they can't quite put their finger on it.
Wow.
And even if they do know what's wrong, sometimes it's just really hard to bring it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Who wants to have like a big, heavy conversation about their relationship?
Exactly. And there's the fear of conflict, the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
What if your partner gets defensive or doesn't take it well?
Right.
So sometimes it feels easier to just avoid those tough conversations altogether.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And that's where things can start to go sideways.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because when you bottle things up, they tend to come out in other ways,
Yeah.
sometimes in ways that are, not so healthy.
So are you saying that like lack of communication can actually be a driver for infidelity?
It can definitely contribute, yeah.
Huh. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's not always the sole cause, but it can definitely create a breeding ground for trouble.
Now, this is making me think about something else too.
Yeah.
We all know people who are like really impulsive,
Oh, yeah.
right? They just act without thinking, zero thought for the consequences.
Right.
How does that play into all of this?
Well, it ties into this idea of emotional awareness or sometimes lack thereof.
Okay.
If someone's not really in touch with their own feelings
Yeah.
and they're not used to stopping and thinking things through before they act,
Mm-hmm.
they might be more susceptible to making impulsive decisions.
Okay, so like what kind of situation are we talking about here?
So imagine, let's say someone's at a conference for work. They're away from their partner.
Okay.
They meet someone interesting. There's some chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of taking a step back,
Yeah.
really thinking about their feelings, thinking about the potential consequences.
Right.
They just act on impulse, driven by that immediate attraction, that excitement of the moment.
So it's almost like that fight or flight response.
Right.
But instead of running away, they're engaging.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
that primitive part of the brain taking over,
Yeah.
bypassing the more logical, consequences considering part.
Right. Right.
And this is also where commitment issues can come into play.
Okay. Now you're hitting on something that I was curious about.
Yeah.
How do commitment issues factor into infidelity?
Well, for some people, it's about downplaying the significance of cheating.
Oh, okay.
Like they might tell themselves, oh, it's just a fling, it doesn't really count,
Mhm.
because they're not truly committed to the relationship anyway.
It almost sounds like they're trying to convince themselves that it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's a form of self-deception.
Right.
And often this is tied into deeper insecurities.
Okay, tell me more about that. Like, how do insecurities contribute to this?
Well, imagine someone who feels inadequate or unlovable.
Mm-hmm.
They might cheat as a way to seek external validation.
Oh, I see.
To get that temporary boost to their ego to prove to themselves that they're still desirable.
So they're looking for something outside of themselves to make them feel better.
Exactly. And it's a vicious cycle.
How so?
Because the validation they get from cheating is fleeting.
Right.
And ultimately, it just reinforces those negative beliefs about themselves.
So they're not actually addressing the root of the problem.
Right. They're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, that's really sad, actually.
It is, yeah.
And, this whole thing about validation makes me think about social media.
Interesting connection.
Like how people get so addicted to likes
Yeah.
and followers.
Yeah.
Is it really that different?
I mean, there are definitely parallels.
Right.
It's about that dopamine rush,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of being desired, of being wanted.
Right. And if you're not getting that in your relationship,
Exactly. It can make you more vulnerable to seeking it elsewhere.
and then there's that whole societal pressure thing too, right?
Right.
Like some cultures or some social circles almost make it seem like cheating is inevitable.
Yeah, like it's just a part of being a guy,
Yeah, like you can't escape it.
which is so damaging.
Totally.
I mean, we're all products of our environment to some extent.
Right.
If you're constantly surrounded by messages that downplay the importance of fidelity,
Yeah.
it's going to have an impact.
It's like that whole boys will be boys mentality.
Exactly. And that's just so outdated and unhelpful.
Yeah, it's got to go.
But at the end of the day, we all have free will, right?
Right.
We make our own choices.
For sure.
But there's another piece of this puzzle that I think is important to mention.
What's that?
Relationship skills.
Oh, interesting.
Believe it or not everyone has had good role models when it comes to relationships.
Oh, that's true.
Not everyone has learned healthy ways to communicate,
Yeah.
to resolve conflict, to express their needs.
Right.
It's like if you never learn to cook,
Right.
you're going to struggle in the kitchen, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Relationships take work, they take skills, just like anything else.
So are you saying that someone might cheat because they just don't know how to be in a relationship?
Well, it's not that simple,
Right.
but if someone doesn't know how to express their needs
Mhm.
or they're terrified of confrontation,
Yeah.
they might resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Right.
And that can include infidelity.
Wow. This has been really eye-opening.
It's a lot to unpack. Right?
Yeah, it really is.
But I think the key takeaway here
Yeah.
is that there's rarely one single reason why someone cheats.
Mm.
It's usually a complex mix of factors.
Right.
Emotional needs, societal pressures, personal insecurities, and sometimes, just plain bad choices.
Well said. I think that's a great point to end on. Understanding all these different factors is just the first step.
Right.
The real work is in building relationships where both partners feel heard and respected and fulfilled.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think we should all be striving for. So to our listener out there, what can you do to make your relationship stronger?
Yeah. What can you do?
That's something to think about.
It is.
And I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Yeah, food for thought.
For sure. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been really insightful.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
All right, take care.
Bye.